CONAPRI is the National Venezuelan Council for Investment Promotion. At CONAPRI, we have established 2 years ago our mission as to promote effectively investment and to reach, through investment, a better welfare in Venezuela. In order to achieve this mission, we have different objectives, but two of them are very important for investors. One is to assist the investor, to help him to answer his question, to guide him, and to establish the contacts he needs to realize effectively his investment in our country. And the other one is to work permanently on a better environment for investors, an environment that allows for investment to come true and to be very successful.
You may remember watching these scenes of Venezuela on TV, but they shouldn't lead investors, such as you, to turn away from Venezuela. Such public acts of violence, in fact, point out the collapse of old and deeply mistaken attitudes and policies. They are a flashback to a previous free-spending, state-run economy fed by gushers of a 40-year-old oil boom. Venezuela warrants a closer look. Why Venezuela? Nowadays, the attitude that government could do everything, that markets could be managed by central governments, has been discarded in Venezuela. Policies that considered private investment, at best, as icing on the cake and, at worst, as downright hostile, have been left by the wayside. Venezuela's hard economic realities have led to a sobering learning experience. The shock of a seriously underperforming economy has dispelled a lot of welfare state illusions. People, unfortunately, have had to pay the price. Understandably, they have protested and sought a reversal of policies. New attitudes and policies have been in place since 1989. The Venezuelan economy has made a healthy recovery. Growth is back on track. A major turnaround has been achieved in a surprisingly short period of time. Realistic economic policies and plentiful, unexploited opportunities have shaped the way to a sound business climate. In Venezuela, the doors are open for profitable ventures.
We kind of felt that this was the right time and the right place for this type of business opportunity. There have been a lot of recent changes that are taking place in Venezuela, and if you have not, I think a company that has been looking at foreign investment opportunities, if Venezuela has not been looked at recently, the time is right. The consortium led by GTE has invested close to $2 billion in Venezuela already to obtain the right to operate the telephone company and to obtain a sizable ownership of that company. And that by itself certainly shows a great deal of confidence by this investor group.
My name is Harvey Johnson. I'm a banana specialist. I've been working in this field for almost 45 years. I came to Venezuela for the first time in 1989, looking for a place to build a banana project. I had no idea whether there was any area in the country that would be suitable for banana agriculture. What bananas like is heat, sunlight, good soils, and adequate high-quality water. All of these characteristics are present in this area. There were, of course, a number of other questions. Would there be enough labor to do the work? Would there be enough personnel of an administrative level available for supervising the project? Would we be able to find Venezuelan investors who would be interested in participating in a project of this type? Fortunately, all of these factors came together. We will have 2,500 hectares planted within the next 2 months, and we expect to continue expanding as market requirements indicate. Everything so far has been very positive.
Foreign investors can simply come in and set up shop. There are no entry requirements, no need to register, no prior approvals. Profits and investments can be taken out of the country without limits or restraints. There are no foreign exchange controls.
Well, one of the great things that's happened in Venezuela during the past 2 or 3 years is that the environment for foreign investors has improved dramatically. And today you have virtually no restrictions. You have practically all of the rights and all of the obligations of a national investor, with the exception of some sectors like banking and insurance, for example. In our business, we can repatriate, if we wanted to, 100% of our profits. Now, in fact, we're not, because we're reinvesting that money into Venezuela. But if we wanted to, we could expatriate or repatriate 100% of our total net profit.
Corporate income tax has been cut to a maximum 30%, and tariffs have been reduced to 9%.
6 years ago, we invested $10 million, and today we are having assets of $130 million. The reason for growing in such a fast way was because, first of all, we as foreign investment were welcome in the country. We got all the needed help from the authorities, be them from the central government or from the different municipalities where we act. And we consider Venezuela today to be on the right track.
Venezuela has comparative advantages that others can't claim. First, there's oil, lots of it. The country has the largest proven oil reserves outside the Middle East and one of the most modern petroleum industries. PDVSA, Venezuela's national oil company, provides a good example of how the country is opening up to international investment. Areas in the oil and petrochemical industry that were formerly off limits to international investors are now being developed by joint ventures with private partners. Pequiven, a state-owned company, is overseeing the largest boom in Venezuela's petrochemical history. The company has reduced its role as a direct investor and is concentrating its efforts on promoting a wide array of new products.
In the past, we were limited, in fact, by the fact that Pequiven usually required or demanded high percentages of the equity. That doesn't appear to be the case anymore. So, in fact, I think it will make the projects even more attractive because we could take a bigger cut of the pie. The opportunities are certainly there. We have unquestionable competitive advantages in the area.
The world-class projects already on the way in Venezuela are taking advantage of the country's huge reserves of natural gas, available at some of the most competitive prices in the world. Besides black gold, there's, well, gold. There are over 10,000 tons of proven gold reserves in Venezuela's Guayana region, most of it easily recoverable through surface mining. If calculated at present market value, these reserves alone are worth some $100 billion. But oil and gold are only part of Venezuela's vast underground wealth. There are gigantic and easily accessible deposits of coal, iron ore, bauxite, phosphates, zinc, copper, and diamonds. A new mineral law encourages foreign investment in this half-dormant sector. Venezuela has a modern, fully integrated aluminum industry. One of the aluminum companies, Venalum, a joint venture between Japanese investors and the Venezuelan government, has the largest installed capacity for aluminum smelting in the world. This sector is poised for dramatic growth and enjoys a special competitive advantage: Venezuela's abundant and low-cost hydroelectric power. The Guri hydroelectric complex, one of the world's largest with 10,000 megawatts of generating capacity, is located near the country's existing and projected aluminum plants. As a matter of fact, all industries located in Venezuela enjoy access to low-cost energy from hydroelectric and fossil fuel sources. With 352,000 square miles, more than twice the size of California, or slightly larger than France and Germany combined, Venezuela has a population of over 20 million, and more than 65% are under 30 years old. Although formal education lags behind the country's needs, the labor force is eager to learn and achieve. Venezuela is also an active, dynamic society, free of racial barriers. The country has a large pool of foreign-educated professionals and managers with international experience. Much of this is due to large government investments in the Ayacucho Scholarship Program over the last 2 decades. This program is a meaningful legacy of petrodollars that were well spent. Recently, the World Bank recognized the importance of this program by providing $70 million in assistance for training university students in technical fields overseas.
What we have found, though, is we find a very great difference between the older generation and the younger generation. There's a whole category, there's a whole class of students which 10 years ago they had here the beca what was it, the Mariscal de Ayacucho. When the government had a lot of money, one thing they did spend it well on was sending these people abroad. And you see that a lot of young people have had very, very good training. Those young people between, what, now 28 and 40, okay, young people, maybe I shouldn't call them young, but anyway, middle-aged, they're very enthusiastic and very well trained.
I've been very impressed with the universities here as a source of professionals, hiring professionals into a company, particularly in the areas of engineering, technical engineering, and financial technicians. I've been very, very impressed with the quality of recruits that we're able to bring in from the local market in these areas, and these are key for virtually any large business.
The professionals are hardworking, they're well qualified, and the middle managers are also well educated and striving to do a much better job. And one of the great things about this country is that they're either young chronologically or they're young in their attitude, meaning that they're adapting to change all the time, they're willing to make improvements, and they're not locked into ways of doing things that their fathers or grandfathers happen to be doing.
The financial sector is opening up to private international investors. It's one of the economy's main driving forces. Agile, technologically advanced, and increasingly responsive to consumer needs and entrepreneurial requirements. It is a leading factor in forging new businesses, alliances between local firms and foreign partners. Venezuela is rapidly becoming a pole for the region's financial development. Tourism is another good example that change in Venezuela is underway. With over 1,000 miles of Caribbean beaches, tropical rainforests, and exotic highlands and the magnificent landscapes of the Andes, Venezuela is the ideal year-round vacation paradise. Playa Medina in eastern Venezuela, beautiful and untouched, where Club Med is developing a high-quality resort. Further north on the island of Margarita, other five-star resorts are already active, and several new projects are underway. Venezuela offers exciting opportunities to develop new sites for adventure and ecotourism. These and other projects have generated a need for peripheral recreational services and products currently lacking in Venezuela.
Oh, unquestionably, Venezuela has enormous tourist potential. So far, we really haven't developed that potential. It's more of an adventure when you start off as we are, without all the infrastructure being there. There's a lot to be done, but yes, being there first will make a difference, unquestionably.
A substantial share of oil revenues has been invested in large and modern infrastructure projects, many of which have recently been privatized, thereby freeing them from government mismanagement.
Venezuela, as I mentioned before, has very big advantages from the standpoint of view of having an excellent infrastructure compared to other Latin American countries, obviously. And in what respect to ports, highways, electricity, very reliable supplies in most of the cities where we operate, and a comparatively good telephone and communication system.
And they've been putting a lot of emphasis on infrastructure, things such as the road system, generation of electricity, water distribution, and telecommunications. And a key strategy that has been used or is being used to jumpstart, push these infrastructure elements into the future very quickly is privatization.
In 1991, the privatization program generated over $2 billion. The National Telephone Company, the main international airline, a steel pipe plant, commercial banks, sugar mills, and a shipyard have been sold off. The government is now in the process of granting concessions to operate major commercial seaports. Venezuela's geographical location makes it the gateway to markets in the United States, Europe, and the rest of Latin America. Flight time between Caracas and New York is somewhat shorter than from New York to Los Angeles. Caracas to Miami is the same as Miami to New York. It takes over twice as long to fly from New York to Santiago, Rio, or Buenos Aires as it does to fly to Caracas. Major cities in the United States and Europe are served by over 80 non-stop flights weekly. Seagoing freight from Venezuela arrives in Houston or New York within 5 days. Venezuela is much closer to Europe than Argentina, Brazil, or Chile. Venezuela is the hub for an expanding network of regional markets. It has established a free trade zone with Colombia, creating a joint market of close to 50 million people.
We have been able to export competitively to the countries of the Caribbean, and in the very near future, because of the integration with Colombia, we see very good opportunities for most of our products.
The quality of life is one of the great advantages of doing business in Venezuela.
My wife immediately fell in love with the country, the people, and the city. The restaurants are fantastic. There are very fine theaters, and that includes bringing in shows from the States, from Europe, from other South American countries.
The question foremost in everybody's mind is, will Venezuela stay the course?
Today, Venezuela is a very different country, essentially because attitudes are very different. The questions that Venezuelans are asking themselves are very different today than the questions that were being asked before. Before, the main concerns and worries were how to nationalize private firms, how to protect domestic markets, how to restrict foreign investment. Today, the main questions are how to privatize firms, how to attract foreign investors, how to make local industry more competitive, how to get access to international markets.
As a result, whoever holds the reins of government has no choice but to provide an attractive business climate for investors, efficient public services, and a low inflation economy. Venezuela's free trade policies are next to impossible to roll back. Many sectors of the economy have developed a strong momentum based on low trade tariffs, and Venezuela is strongly committed to international trade agreements. Current economic policies cannot be thrown into reverse. The country is committed to the recovery of lost time and wasted business potential.
If we weren't thinking long-term, we would have stopped our investment. We would have stopped the flow of money, which we didn't. The minute that we had the coup here, we continued our building and we continued everything. Otherwise, we would now be a year later.
Venezuela, because of its relative isolation for many years, has not learned to play the international public relations game. So other countries are getting and providing headlines. Venezuela is providing opportunities.
Now that we are here, we in CANTV, managing CANTV, have developed plans to invest between the year 1992 and the year 2000 around $6 billion to expand and improve the telecommunications infrastructure that exists.
We are planning the new investment, a much bigger one. We have a methanol plant in Jose, which has $400 million of investment. And the second one is repetition of the direct reduction plant, newly constructed in Port Ordaz. This is also $300 million of investment. And the third one is a very big project, which is a national interest of Venezuela, which is utilization of the bitumen of Orinoco River. And we are cooperating in this project with our friend company Mitsubishi.
So if the government policy keep the same direction for the open economy, and if you find a reliable partner, I think Venezuela is one of the most favorable market for your investment.
New untapped resources, expanding markets, realistic and open policies. They all make for unbeatable opportunities and profitable competitive advantages. They're also the reason why Venezuela is fast becoming the country that smart investors can't afford to pass up. Come and see for yourself.